I have the distinct honor and privilege of getting to introduce Dr. Bernard Lafayette. His accomplishments are so numerous and so significant that you're going to have to throw me out of the meeting, Charles, because it's going to go on a while. Would you believe we are awarding the Lillian Smith Prize to a street gang leader and ex-con? He went to Parchman. And there are a lot of people who didn't have the courage to survive Parchman, and has an award from the Highlander Folk School. This is an extremely short list. This is a man of many parts who fears not to tread where others quailed at the obduracy of the foe and the entrenchment of the mores and laws. Firm in the faith that nonviolence had to prevail, his strength was as the strength of 10 because his heart and his intention were pure. We need no further demonstration of man's inhumanity to man than what we are seeing lately at home and abroad. It behooves us to remember and celebrate those brave workers who waded through the strife and faced down the forces of racism and terror. Bernard Lafayette Jr., one such courageous man, was a co-founder of SNCC, leader in the Nashville lunch counter sit-ins, a freedom rider on the segregated buses and terminals, an associate of Martin Luther King's and Southern Christian Leadership Conference and national coordinator of the Poor People's Campaign, director of the Alabama voter registration campaign in Selma, Alabama. At any point during these organizational activities, he could have lost his life. In these parlous times, when civil unrest caused by unforgivable prejudice, we remember the words of the old song, "Glory be to God, we're gonna need him again." Presently, he is a distinguished scholar in residence at the Candler Theological Seminary at Emory University and the chairman of the board of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. We have but a small token of our esteem to award Bernard Lafayette Jr., but I know none of us on the committee will ever forget this courageous man. And do I get to present them?
You do.
Oh, yes. Dr. Lafayette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson and Bart, and my fellow awardee, right? Just absolutely overwhelmed, that would be my word, with this kind of distinction. And I've received many awards over the last 50 years, and I've been given a lot of things, including time in jail. They give you that, you know, you don't have to pay for it. You don't have to fill out an application, you know. They give you room and board. Yes, and we used to have, if you notice, if you check the record very closely, we always had our sit-ins before lunch. At the lunch counters, because we weren't going to be served lunch. But if we could get arrested before lunch, we get food in jail. Yes, so we always had sit-ins, you know, at a time when we could make sure. But I wanted to, first of all, thank you, Dr. Johnson, and the committee members, judges, who decided that my book should get this award. I really do appreciate, this distinction that you've given this book. And when I look at these two ladies right here, there's a history there. I used to pastor a church. Her father used to pastor, and some people don't know that Ms. Connie Curry was and Mr. Ella Baker were our advisors to SNCC. And there were two, and both were women, one white, one black. That's all we needed. No, they had an unusual thing, and I learned that from them. How you give guidance rather than direction. There's a difference. Directing people and then guiding them. And that's what I learned from those two women who helped SNCC from its infancy to become an organization that made a lot of contribution to the movement. And I cannot forget that John Lewis used to also be director of the voter education project. But it was Randolph Blackwell who made a long speech before his departure to a group. And I never will forget, some people said, well, he's talking too long. I said, what do you mean too long? How much is too long when this ended up being his last major speech? Did you know that? Yeah, that's right. And but I'm not gonna talk long. Come on. This is not gonna be my last speech. It's just such a pleasure and a privilege to have Senator Charles Steele Jr. and his wife, Annette, join me as my special guest. He's president of the National Southern Christian Leadership Conference, who insists that the organization will continue to survive, thrive, and make its contribution to humanity. And he's going to Germany just a few weeks from now to make the same speech that Martin Luther King made in Berlin, 50 years ago? Yeah, isn't that something? And they are just so excited over in Berlin in terms of Martin Luther King's contribution and what he did to make a difference there. And we're mainly going to learn more about the work of Martin Luther King in Germany, which we didn't know. So time will tell if you allow time to open its mouth. So, and my wife, who is love of my life, and yes. State Lafayette. Yeah, her father was Booker T. Washington's office boy. Yeah. No, in Tuskegee. Built the first black supermarket, like Angus. The first federal housing in Tuskegee. Her father started that. You know how he was able to get that through? He knew how to keep his mouth shut. That's how he was able to get it. Okay? There's a time to open your mouth, and there's a time to keep it closed. He knew when. Okay? Did that. So, you heard of Propeller Club, right? Those who know about the Tuskegee Airmen? Her father was the one that built the club, Propeller Club. He was a serious businessman. And I'm glad I got a chance to know him before he departed. Wonderful. But I'm not worried about going to heaven. The Lord wanted to make sure I get there, so he sent me an angel, my wife, to show me. coming. You know? But I appreciate the time that I have here to continue to make whatever contribution. The book is one section of my autobiography. I couldn't do the whole thing at one time because it had just been too long, because I'm still doing work, and the longer I wait, you know, the more the book would have just been too heavy to carry around. So I decided to get a little snippet, okay, a little portion of it, some of the things that will be helpful, okay? So I hope we have the time for at least a couple of questions, that kind of thing, so I'm gonna be short. You got one question? You can ask that question on your mind, just one, okay? Okay. What I'm interested in terms of the book is three things. One is the book is dedicated to all the women, okay? Like my grandmother, my mother, my wife, and Mrs. Boynton. By the way, she had a birthday last week, 110. Yeah, Amelia Boynton Robinson. And she would sit up in the bed talking to us and reminding us of all the things. You're supposed to, as a minister, you're supposed to visit the sick, but you're not supposed to stay a long time. That's why they're in the hospital, to get them away from folks who talk them to death, okay? And so we've been trained. I went to the American Baptist Seminary. You stay 15 minutes, but I couldn't stop her from talking. She kept going. Yeah, she's full of it. She understands so many things and so much a part of history. The book, when I couldn't remember certain things, I would call her, a woman who was 108 years old, and she would give me all the details and things that I needed to know. So she's not just here, she's, you know, making a contribution still. Isn't that something? Let's give an applaud for Mrs. Boynton. She was a woman that you saw on photos that was knocked down on that bridge when they had the bridge crossing from Selma to Montgomery. You had a big, tall, regal woman who was there on the sidewalk, knocked down. They tear gassed her and hit her in the head and everything. The horse ran over her. Yeah, she was the one that made the decision to stay in Selma, Alabama with her husband, Mr. Boynton, and they founded, along with others, the the Dallas County Voters League. I have to quickly say this, because this is a mistake that we made in the movement. And I'm old enough now to share errors that we've made, so you won't repeat them as young people, okay? And had we done what we should have done, okay? And of course, the Southern Regional Council laid the groundwork, and all we had to do was follow it, and we didn't do it. And that was to establish citizenship education programs in every county. We have the protection for the right to vote. That's what the bill was about. But what we didn't do was to institutionalize a way to help people. How do you expect people to know how to vote and how to participate in government when they've been locked out for how many years? They know how to get their gun registered, but in their car, in their horse, okay? But they didn't know how to go and get themselves registered. Now, my confession is I never took anybody down to register to vote except those in Wilcox County who hadn't gone down in 50 years out of G's Bend. Because I say what you've got to do is learn how to go register to vote. We will teach you how to fill out the forms and the application, but you need to take yourself down to register to vote, because I'm not going to be here when it's time for you to go vote. I can't go around and take everybody around to vote. So our error we made was not to establish a citizenship education program in every county. It's not too late to do that. And that is the problem that we're having today.
That's right.
That's because of what we didn't do. You think we'd have Ferguson if those people will register to vote and know how to participate in government? We have the solution, we just haven't implemented it. The problem is complicated, the solution is simple. How many folks in our family are not registered to vote? I told my granddaughter, I ain't gonna get no money from me unless you show me your voter registration card. Yeah, that's your ticket. Yeah. So what we got, these young people, they're turning 18 every day. Did you know that? And nobody's told them how to go register to vote. What we need to do is have a birthday party every month for those turn 18, and your registration card will be your admittance. We need to do that. We need to help these young people learn how to participate. They took it out of the schools. Why do you think they did that? That's my point. So the burden is on us. We can march and we can demonstrate, and of course I believe in that. I've been arrested 27 times. But unless we do the groundwork and the education that's necessary, we're not going to see the kind of change that we want to see and the change that needs to take place. I'd like to start registering those at 12 years old to have a youth government. Suppose you had a youth legislature in Georgia. You have to go to class to learn how to drive a car to get your license, driver's ed. What about citizens ed? You're going to drive the government. You need to have what? A license, and you need some training to make it happen. So that's what this book is about. One thing. The next is that you have to learn how to develop leadership in your church, in your community, in your club, your organization. To just come once a year and have the great annual meeting is not enough. It's what you do in the meantime. Okay? Yes. The celebration is the work that you have been doing all along. That's what you're celebrating about. And this is what we've got to learn to do. Mrs. Steele, for example, has a program, Justice for Girls, which is focused on selling young women and exploiting them. We're talking about slaves. Slavery is not over. Folks are still selling folk. One thing to sell out, another is to sell in. So the selling is going on. And that's one of the programs that the SCLC, is working on a daily basis. Finally, the book is about appreciating those people who made enormous contributions to the movement. I close by saying that I was a target for assassination. When Medgar Evers was killed in Jackson, Mississippi, and I knew him very well. In fact, I was with him when the Freedom Rides was in Jackson, and he helped to get us an office there on Lynch Street in order to be able to do our training, because we trained folks from Jackson to be involved. But Medgar Evers was a close friend and really admired him, and I learned a lot from him. He was executive secretary of the state of Mississippi for the NAACP. And I was a member since 12 years old, NAACP card. I have my life membership in my pocket right now. Yeah, because it was the life of the movement when I was growing up. Yeah, NAACP. On that same night that he was assassinated, I was encountered by two white men who had faked a disabled car. And they asked me if I would give them a push. And I volunteered to give a push. It was 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I thought that, I was trying to get some rest because we don't sleep in the movement. So if we can just pretend that we get in bed, that'd be good. So I was just trying to, get to bed. I knew I wasn't gonna sleep, because you don't know when a bomb is gonna come flying through your window. So every little noise, a cricket sound, you know, wide awake. So, as I attempted to give them a push, the one on the outside was looking at the bumpers of the car. And the car was a 48 Chevrolet back in 1963. You know where I got that car from? Julian Bond. That was one of his jobs, distributing cars to the snake workers. And they had new cars and everything, and he gave me a 48 Chevrolet. I said, Julian, I mean, what is wrong with you? He said, listen, Bernard. He said, for going in these rural areas where you are going, this is the best car you could get. It has huge tires on it, and it's made out of some real metal, okay, not plastic. And you can bank around curves, you know, those dirt roads and everything. That would be the car you need. And so, you know, and it has high, you know, windows. So you can scoot down in the car and drive. And I wasn't that tall, you know. And so it had high bumper guards on it. So as I was giving this guy a push, he looked at it, and I said, he said, kept hesitating and bumping around, and he was a huge guy too. He's a white fella, and he didn't have a neck. His head just sat right down in his shoulders, you know. And so when he turned around, he had to turn everything, you know. And he had a T-shirt on, and the muscle was so big, you know, the shirt rolled up. So what he said was, "You better get out and take a look." Because he asked me how much I would charge him, and I said nothing. So I got out, and I was in a hurry. I bent down, and then boom, he hit me in the head. Went straight down to the ground, but I jumped up. That's what you got to do when you get knocked down. Nonviolence teaches you how to get up. Okay? You got to get up. If there's anything left in you, get up. And I stood right in front of him and looked at him. So he hit me again. The scars still there. I went down. And then he hit me again. See, by this time you learn to roll with the punch. So you absorb the energy of your opponent. That's part of nonviolence. It's not that you don't do anything. Yes, you do. You're working. Even under attack, you're working. Okay? Yeah. To transform the energy of your opponent to your own strength. And that's the thing that got me to get up, the strength of my opponent. And then the third time I looked at him, and he came down on top of my head again. And I went flat down, and then I got right back up and looked at him. I had to look up, because he was a big fella. And you know what happened? He got scared. You done knocked the guy 3 times, a little skinny, you know, guy like me. I didn't even wear short pants in those days. And he standing there looking at you after you done knocked him out twice, okay? Then I realized he had a gun, and he was gonna shoot me. So I turned around and I said, "Red!" Upstairs over where I lived, there was a fellow named Red who'd come from Vietnam, and he called himself my bodyguard. I didn't ask him, but he volunteered, you know. And he came across the banister with the gun, and I stepped between him and the fellow who was hitting me and said, "No, Red, don't shoot. Don't shoot him, Red. Don't shoot." And he was trying to jockey around to get a position. "Don't shoot, Red. Don't shoot." By that time, the guy jumped in the car and took off. There was nothing wrong with that car. They were going to lure me down into that neighborhood where they had a group waiting on me so they can do an Emmett Till on me. Yeah. Medgar wasn't that fortunate. They shot him the same night. The FBI came to investigate. When the FBI came to investigate, they told me that there was a 3-state conspiracy that had been planned in New Orleans. It's supposed to have killed Ben Elton Cox. Ben Elton Cox was a freedom rider. And you will see him on the Freedom Riders film. He came out of Corps. He was on the original ride. And they were supposed to get Medgar Evers in Jackson, Mississippi, supposed to get Ben Elton Cox in Louisiana, Medgar Evers in Mississippi. They're supposed to have gotten me in Selma, but they missed. But even if they had killed me, they would have missed because I had already given my life. And when you've given your life, nobody can take it.